Hello, Phantom fans. I'm Sam, he's Justin, and welcome to this bonus main camp episode of the Dump and Chase podcast, brought to you by Advanced Podiatry. So be sure to check out advancedpodiatry.com for more information. So, Justin, this has been a hellacious couple of weeks, has it not?
I think Murphy's Law has kicked in full force.
Yeah, it's just been the gamut the last couple weeks. I started a new job, but I had to finish up my old job at the same time. Everything in my house decided to break all at once. Learning how to change brakes, which just something I just haven't learned up until this point. How to take apart a gas dryer and diagnose why it wasn't working. Just all sorts of fun the last couple weeks.
Yeah, well, I mean, I had to have my car towed out of my garage myself. There's just been, we've talked about it privately. Yeah, everything. It's just been, I'm starting, 2-3 months into a new job.
Yeah. So if anybody wonders why the main camp episode was a week later than we were telling everybody it was supposed to be, that's why. Just a lot going on. All right, so as we mentioned in our main camp episode, and if you haven't listened to that show yet and are starting with this one, really?
What?
I mean, come on, seriously?
Right.
Yeah, go back, listen to that one if you haven't yet, and then come listen to this one. I mean, come on. But as we talked about in that episode, we had two of the interviews, one with Jay Fowler, the father of Phantom's goaltender Jacob Fowler, and one with Phantom's president Andrew Goldman. Both of those ran past what we had timed out for those segments, so we had to edit them for time. But these were great conversations, and it would have been a crime to cut them short forever. So in this bonus episode, you are going to hear both of those interviews in their entirety. So to kick this off, here is the full unedited interview with Jay Fowler. Okay, and we're back in the media room once again, and we're going to make it a family affair. Now, this is something we've wanted to do for a long time. You always hear the stories about players, their billet families, everything like that. We've always wanted to get the perspective of an actual player parent. So right now we have with us Jay Fowler, of course, the father of Jacob Fowler. Jay, welcome to the Dump and Chase podcast. Thanks for taking a few minutes.
Thanks for having me.
All right, so I guess we'll just real quickly kind of start at the beginning. Like, how did Jacob get into hockey, like starting out?
Well, I always liked hockey, and I played a little bit in college and just men's leagues, just for fun. I mainly was a skier and played a little hockey as a off ice or off snow training. Living in Florida after grad school, and I started playing, and when we had kids, my wife would take him to the games, and he just wanted to play. So around the house, he had a little hockey stick, and he'd stick handle around and have fun with it. But, it wasn't anything real serious until, at some point he started to skate and just kind of never looked back. But he started playing hockey when he was about 3 years old. He was going for, mini mites lessons and things like that. But he gravitated to it and kind of took off. He was always really good for his age group, and then as he got into the more competitive levels of hockey in Florida, we don't have a lot of players, so he wanted to play goalie, and they needed a goalie. And even though he was a good skater as well, that's kind of where it took off from.
So he wanted to play goalie. It wasn't one of those, he was the kid that fit the pads.
No, he at an early age, I think, was kind of like a lot of kids. Maybe in baseball, you see the catcher and you see that they're involved all the time and they have the cool gear and all that. And I was never the kind of dad that said, "Oh, you're not going to do that because you'll get stuck in there," or anything. Anything he wanted to do, we let him try it, and he was good at it. And so I wasn't sure that it would ever be his full-time thing. Growing up in Florida, if you'd tell me back then that we would be on this journey, I'd say you're crazy. But it's just one little step at a time, and things worked out. But he wanted to be a goalie, and he had some talent for it. He always had a good ability to catch the puck, and he wasn't afraid. There's a lot of kids at that age are afraid, but whether it was in soccer, he didn't mind being out front and trying to catch the ball or play the ball, and hockey was the same way. He wasn't afraid of it, so he gravitated to it, and he had enough success early that he became kind of a sought-after player. And luckily for him, he was good enough at an early age that he got into the right situations, and it put him on a path to where he got to now.
So then he gets up to the point where, he's with Florida Alliance. So obviously he's close to home, not a big deal. But then you start getting into like Kent Selects and stuff like that. And now with Youngstown, and you talk about the sacrifices in this game. And one of those is basically entrusting your child to, somebody else and, whether another program or whatever. What was that like for you? Like in the beginning, having to go through that, sending him away to, Connecticut, and now Youngstown.
Well, for us, it kind of started at a little bit of an earlier age because we got to the point we have 2 children, and at some point we had to divide and conquer. When you're growing up playing hockey in Florida, I think, there's only a handful of rinks. Just about every weekend he had to go somewhere away from home to go play. And so whether it was me or my wife, we had to kind of split so that my other son could be involved in his hockey or other sports that he was doing. And so, there's a lot of parents that insist on always being there with that child. And early on, I had to just say, all right, I'm the dad and I've played hockey and I'm maybe more experienced at tying skates, but I'm the one I got to let go and trust her to do it. And she did it and she was great at it. And throughout that time, they were getting on airplanes to go play hockey at a very early age. And, when I couldn't be there, I just had to trust that things were going to go okay. So I had to give up opportunities a lot of times to be there. So it started out with that. When he got to the point at, say 15, when he had to, in Florida, the common experience is by the time you're facing prep school or high school age, you really need to be going somewhere else because the opportunities are just slimmer. Now with the Florida Alliance, it's been a little bit more recognition at the AAA level so that they can go and play and be seen and showcased. But, as a 15-year-old, it was almost like dropping your son off to college, but he couldn't drive yet, didn't have a learner's permit. He did get experience with a little bit of that, like when he was a 13 going into 14-year-old. At that point, you can try out for USA Hockey, and they have regional camps. And he was one of the goalies selected to go to Southeast Regional Camp at Kent State University. It's a week-long camp. USA Hockey has their coaches come in, and they put on a lot of things. It's partial evaluation, but it's all development. And a lot of parents wanted to be there, spend that week with him. But I told Jacob, I got to go to some camps when I was a kid. And it was a really great experience to get a few wings under you. So that week was my gift to him. He got to be on his own and learn what it was like to live with chaperones and coaches as your leaders and not have mom or dad meddling. So that was really the first time. And so when it came time to drop him off for prep school, it was not the first time, but it was a big commitment and a little bit scary. But you knew that if he was ever going to follow his dream, it had to be done. And he also had that comfort of knowing, hey, he's going to be in a safer environment. It's not going to be some of our friends, played here for the Pens Elite. And that was a bigger commitment, bigger struggle because it's not a prep school environment. It was, families having to get hotels and find, maybe an apartment for their child to live and find what school their kid was going to go to. And I wouldn't say anything bad about traditional prep schools, but a lot of traditional prep schools, the hockey is not the focus. They want them to play 3 sports or they want them to do a lot of other different things. Well, South Kent was an environment that really worked great for us. It was an elite hockey focus. They had great academics, but everything was right there on campus. And in the year that he went, which was a COVID year, they had everything they needed to close campus and be able to give them the continued training and focus that they needed so that when things opened up and they were able to go to Northeastern regionals, things like that was all there. And we didn't have to move with him. We knew people who their kids would be in environments where the family would have to have a parent relocate for the season, whether it be in Detroit or Pittsburgh or some people in Nashville. There was an environment where parents would flip-flop weeks. Like, you go this week and we'll stay with the 4 kids in the apartment. And, we were lucky we didn't have to do that. So it was a learning curve for us, but it was made all that better because South Kent had everything that they needed and we needed, and a track record that demonstrated that they could do for him what he needed. And we had a big belief in him, and he didn't let us down, and it really worked out great.
So, you'll have, him coming to Youngstown, about the halfway point of last season. He's going to be living with a host family. What was that like? I mean, on your end, what was that like as far as kind of like creating that relationship with the host family? Because I mean, I imagine there's a good bit of back and forth and everything else. And
well, when we were first having Jacob play hockey, he was maybe 6, 7 years old, and we hosted a billet player at our house for a short time. We had a tier 3 junior team in the local town, and a player came in. He ended up leaving around Thanksgiving, but he came in August, and so we had a little bit of familiarity with the concept. But you know, we were nowhere near prepared for it. We got so blessed. The Kolaski family was a host for the Bartoskevich player who ended up leaving. So they had an immediate opening, and they were ready to host a goalie. You know, goalies aren't always the easiest.
Yeah.
So, you know, Kelsey Morton, our daughter, works with the team. And so they were ready, willing, and able. But we had almost no time to make any real plans. You know, Jacob told me on a Monday afternoon that they wanted him in Youngstown on a Wednesday. I mean, then, you know, 2 days later, and we got on the phone and started talking to people. And, you know, from the beginning, I talked to Patty Kolaski, and she was just fantastic, and wanted to know whatever she could do to make him at home. And, you know, we did everything we could, I think, initially to try to just make them comfortable and let them know what we could in the short time span about what to expect about him. And, you know, it couldn't have worked out any better, the season that he was able to finish out with Youngstown, and the comfort level that he was able to achieve. It meant everything. And without that kind of support, it just couldn't happen. But we didn't have anything more than just a hope and a prayer. And, you know, we also knew that he was going to get an opportunity at some point, and we knew that that would be part of it. But on Monday, he was living on a campus in a dorm with chaperones, and the school was right there. And by Wednesday, we had to figure out how's he going to finish this semester in school, and what's going to happen with regard to all of his stuff. I mean, when he left South Kent, he had a hockey bag on his back and a suitcase, and that was it. And we ended up going back later in the semester to get the rest of his stuff. But Youngstown made it happen. It was really great.
So, I mean, with, you know, him coming into this, you know, he's obviously, you know, impressed a lot of people here in Youngstown. You know, we're coming out of a pretty decent year draft, and, you know, players moving on to college. What point in his development did you ever stop and think, well, you know what, maybe there's a future here, you know, maybe at least a college scholarship, or, you know, maybe, you know, this could be his path? Where at in his development does that come into?
You know, when they were little, one of his coaches was a tier 3 junior coach, and the other coach, one of the other coaches, was a guy that played college. And from very early start, they would tell people, look, you know, you never know what this game has in store for you, but that's what you want to aim at. You want to aim at the college opportunity, and maybe you get a chance to play professionally. But there's not a lot of opportunity at Division I level, but there's a lot of opportunity at the Division III levels. And so if you want it bad enough, and, you know, all these kids that he played with, even from an early age, they all had a lot of talent. And even now, I could name lots of names and kids that are going on to do big, great things in the NHL draft this year, and playing college hockey already. And so, you know, you begin to see these kids and you think, you know, there's opportunities. If we didn't feel like that he had those opportunities in hockey from a pretty early age, we wouldn't have let him continue down that path, in part because he was always a really good athlete in other areas. And in Florida, there's a lot of opportunities, whether it be soccer, football, basketball. And he played lacrosse, was really good at baseball. So he had a lot of other opportunities, but probably where it really happened was in, you know, his year at South Kent. You know, a lot of new opportunities opened up, and we knew from his time here at Youngstown camp that he felt like he could handle the speedy USHL game. But you know, you start looking around at the numbers. Every team only has 2 goalies, and every team, you know, you can have guys that are up to 20 years old here. So the numbers are not in favor of a goalie, and you start to get maybe a little bit discouraged when you look at the kids that you come along with, and Jacob played on really high-level teams, but those kids were in the USHL at 16, some of them 17, and You're just hoping that there's a path. You want to see as a parent that there's opportunity before you give up on the chance to play high school football or some other sport that could lead to something. But it was his dream. It was his passion. It's what he wanted to do. And probably that first year at South Kent, he started getting talked to by coaches. And that's where you start to think, okay, he's going to be a Division I player. And then last season, he got offered opportunity as a verbal offer from Clarkson, and he was very excited about that. He'd had a lot of interest from other schools as well. But, to make that commitment at the age that he was, it's a little bit daunting. I always tell my friends, like, you want that opportunity and you want people talking to your kids, but it's a little bit scary when it happens. As much as we prepared for it and sought it out, when it starts to come down to people asking about your future plans and all that, it's daunting, and it's a little bit scary because you don't know, a lot about it. But even now, he still has to earn it. It's a day in and day out world, and with the transfer portal and all those other things, you just hope that your opportunity still is there when the time comes. But I think that I was flat out just proud and excited for him last year when he did what he did in the league, and I think that it's only going to get better from here on out. And he showed me a lot over the years, but he'd been consistently a good player. I expect that he'll continue on and have those opportunities waiting on him.
Well, I apologize for cracking up there. As you were talking, Jacob walked past the window with his gear, and his brother was behind him lugging about a dozen goalie sticks. So,
yeah.
But as you were talking there. We've been talking to Jay Fowler, of course, the father of Phantoms goaltender Jacob Fowler. I definitely want to say, you've been a fan of the show, avid listener of this show, since Jacob came to Youngstown. So now with you being on it, you're now part of the Dump and Chase podcast universe. So congratulations there. But thank you so much for coming on.
Thanks for having me, guys.
So there we go. That was the full interview with Jay Fowler. Again, a huge thanks to him. How much fun was it to get to hang out with Jay for, man, it had to have been about an hour there when it was all said and done.
Yeah. Even going back to just walking through the parking lot, Jacob had kind of a different path into the USHL than a lot of players, and just learning about that. Yeah, it was really enlightening.
He did a great job of pumping our tires too while he was at it.
Definitely.
He said time and time again, he's a big fan of the show. Like we did a group picture with him. I mean, that was a first for us. We haven't done that before with anybody.
Nope. Yeah. I think we should get him to do some promotionals.
Yeah. It's a good thing as far as that picture. You had your, you styled your hair that morning. Usually you don't, but that morning you did, and it ended up being a good decision.
Definitely, yeah. Having hair.
Yeah. See, that's what you miss if you don't come to main camp. Justin with like a full mane of hair, and then as soon as he leaves, he just shaves it all right back off again. So that's what you're missing when you're not coming out to main camp.
Yeah, Yager had nothing on my mullet.
So on to the next. And I said this before, when you have to edit down an Andrew Goldman interview, it truly is a crime against nature.
Yeah. Yeah.
Again, we're here to rectify that. So we're just going to go straight into it. This was our full conversation with Andrew. And once again, we're back in the media room. I think I've said that every single time we've done this. I've not thought of a new way to intro any of these. But yeah, we're back in the media room. And I guess we could say the original friend of the show is here with us, Phantoms team president Andrew Goldman. It's been a little while since we had you on. You're on now. We're going to have you back again before the season starts. But welcome back to the show, bud.
Always a pleasure to be here. Great to see you guys.
So we're recording this. Main camp is at this point over. The games are everything else. Just what are your overall impressions of how this week went?
It was an incredible week. 14 teams. Stunning to me, the quality of play that was right from the get-go all the way throughout the week. The depth of talent in the world of hockey just broadens and broadens. It's really, really exciting to see. And that obviously ramps up when we went from 14 teams to 6 teams, and you see that pace increase. And then we went to 4, and then this morning to 2, and then a Young Guns game. And across the board, I think it was exciting to see not only the guys who are going to be in Youngstown this year, but the affiliate lists and how talented and mature those young men are, and Youngstown Phantoms hockey is in a really good place, and I'm excited to get to September and have these guys arrive in Youngstown.
How many kids did we start out with this week?
So it was, not including goalies, it was something in the neighborhood of 220.
Wow. Okay. Not including goalies.
Not including goalies.
Okay. So so for right now, bringing you on, you were up in Montreal last week for the NHL draft. Of course, that was a big weekend for the Phantoms organization. Right off the bat, how was your trip to Montreal? I guess we'll start there.
Yeah, it's great. It's been a few years because of COVID since this was a possibility, and the USHL does their summer meetings in concert with the NHL draft, and so this was the first year since Vancouver that we were able to do so in person. So it was a productive work trip, really, really good meetings on Wednesday night and Thursday, and obviously that concludes with the NHL draft on Thursday night and Friday. So it was exciting for me to be there Thursday night. We had some really good news, not in the first round on Thursday night, but in Friday between, Adam Ingram getting drafted 79 overall, 78 overall,
somewhere in there, yeah,
something like that. Philip Nordberg, who we hope will be in Youngstown this year as a defenseman, was drafted by Ottawa in the second round, and a lot of players with a lot of ties to Youngstown were drafted, including both of the Fishers, who will definitely be with us in Youngstown, and we're at development camp this week. So it's there's a tremendous amount of talent in the system, and in the case of Adam Ingram moving on to school, but it's always nice to celebrate the success that we have had with the development of the players, the success the USHL has had with the development of the players, and to not only watch all of them essentially go on to major Division I college, but in more and more cases these days have an opportunity to get to the NHL.
All right, so before we get to Adam, were you booing Gary Bettman on night one? Were you
I was not,
you were
but
not
I was impressed. I have to say this. I'm not going to, say wonderfully glowing things about Gary Bettman, but I will say this. The NHL is in a really, really good place in most every area, and the truth of the matter is that's the commissioner's job. So whatever people, fans of teams, et cetera, think of him, I'm guessing the owners, which is who he works for, are probably pretty happy with Gary Bettman.
Do you think he handled it well on stage when they were giving it to him?
He was, I have to say, when, 10 picks in or 12 picks in, I don't remember, when they started to die down a little bit, and he, I forget exactly what he said, but he was like, "You're losing a little bit of your energy. What's going on?" I loved it.
Well, I thought he was
he's
great. Pretty used to it by now. I think it's like tradition after when he hands out the Stanley Cup.
Yeah.
Even if it's on away ice, the home fans still stay there, and just to boo Gary. So I think he's used to it by now.
But it's something you see with like every commissioner in every league. He's like the only one that will kind of antagonize him a little bit.
He embraces it.
Yeah.
He embraces it.
All right. So you're sitting there, you're in the arena, getting into the third round. A couple Phantoms had been picked at that, or future Phantoms, I guess I should say, had been picked at that point. And then you get to Adam Ingram, somebody who comes in as an 11th round pick, with COVID and everything else, didn't have the best of luck the season before. Maybe, expectations around him, weren't all that great with him coming in, and then seeing what he did throughout the year, and you're right up front there with that journey, and then ending with you sitting in that arena and hearing his name called out as a draft pick of the Nashville Predators. I mean, just for you, what was that moment like?
Yeah, I'm gonna back up a step and tie it to camp a year ago, right? It was this time a year ago where we saw Adam Ingram on the ice, and you knew there was something special there, right? not so different than watching, William Whitelaw or Andrew Strathman and some others this week. There's just something different about the way they move. Matthew Perkins is another one we saw this week, that comes from a similar part of the world as Adam Ingram. So, you see these, young 17, 18-year-old, in some cases 16-year-old young men, and you realize there's something special. You watch them go through a USHL season. Obviously, Adam Ingram was in the hunt all year for Rookie of the Year on a USHL basis. You see that release, you see that stride, you see his hockey IQ, which is, hockey IQ comes in different forms. You see the Georgi Merkulovs of the world and how they're making passes that nobody else in the building sees. You see Adam Ingram, like he understands when that transition from defense to forward is going to happen. And he just his first step going from thinking defensively to thinking I'm gonna stretch this and turn this into a transition play is just better than everybody else's. And the way he skates, it turns into so much offense. So it's really rewarding to watch that, to see that develop over the course of the year, and then obviously see it ultimately end with a very high NHL draft pick and the start of what the real work to come, and hopefully end up in the NHL.
So what you hear his name called? What's the first thing going through your head sitting in that building when his name's called?
Yeah, no, it's just your it's pride, it's excitement for him, and it's validation that everything that we're doing on a daily basis is worth it, right? And we'll save this for the preseason episode, but I mean the amount of work and effort and, quite frankly, money that has been spent to even further the experience as that being a Youngstown Phantom will be this summer is incredible. So we're excited to celebrate Adam and the guys who are going to be in Youngstown and their success, and I'm even more excited to think about how much more of this we're gonna have as we implement a lot of new opportunities for development here in Youngstown.
Okay, so we got we're in the middle of July now. We've still got 2 months before, we're thinking about preseason games or anything like that, or, getting into the fall classic. So, what's next over the next couple months?
Yeah, it's going to be a long 6 weeks, right? I mean, you exit camp and you're excited to get started. You're excited to get these guys in Youngstown, and we got a little bit of a break. So, from the business side, we'll focus on tickets and sponsorship and all of the business things that come with running a USHL team. And at the same time, we'll I can't remember if it's tonight or tomorrow, we'll get our 30-man list up to the USHL, and we'll begin thinking about getting training camp ready and how we can best prepare from September 1st until 22nd and 23rd in Cranberry for the Fall Classic. So the 6 weeks is going to fly by, right? There are always things to do, and hopefully the players get a week off or so, get away from the ice. It's been a tremendous amount of skating this week. I think everybody's tired, but get in the weight room and come to camp ready to go.
All right, so we've been talking to Phantoms president Andrew Goldman. Like we said, we will have an episode coming out probably early September. There'll be another full one with Andrew. We haven't done that in a little while, so we're definitely overdue. So, Andrew, thank you for coming on. Really appreciate it, and we'll talk to you here in a couple months.
Always happy to be here with you guys, and look forward to seeing you soon.
And there you go. So, like we said in the camp episode, our next episode will be coming early next month, where we'll do a full sit-down with Andrew, and there will be a lot to go over. I mean, the coming season, the news about Deep Freeze Ice Arena and the Covelli Center, and quite frankly, whatever else pops up between now and then.
Okay, so we have a long-term lease arrangement with the Covelli, stable ownership and improvements at Deep Freeze, formerly the Ice Zone. Yeah, 7 years ago, if you'd have told me that, I'd have called you crazy.
There's a joke there. It's not coming to me.
It's just nice not to have these distractions.
Yeah. So before we go, I wanted to shout out friend of the show and Phantoms broadcaster Matt Lipsack and his summer podcast, which is called Ghost Stories, the official podcast of the Youngstown Phantoms. Remember, we are the unofficial podcast of the Youngstown Phantoms, which basically means we can say bad things about the league and other teams, and the Phantoms don't get in trouble for it.
Hopefully.
That's been the working agreement so far.
Yeah.
But on Matt's show, you can hear his post-camp interview with new head coach Ryan Ward, and he just released an episode with former Phantom and current Providence Bruin Joey Abate. So wherever you hear our show, you can hear Ghost Stories as well, so make sure to check that out. Justin, anything else you want to add?
Nope.
This is it for about a month. Anything you want to throw in?
Well, I guess as long as the wheels don't fall off, we should be back here to start the season. And no, I don't have anything to add. Just cut that out.
So again, a big thanks to our sponsor, Advanced Podiatry. Be sure to go to advancedpodiatry.com for more information. So for Justin Irwin, I'm Sam Olmstead. Thank you for tuning into the Dump and Chase podcast, and we'll talk to you all again in September. Bye now.